That manhunt in the Brown University shooting suspect is now over.
The video of that subject matched the description of that person of interest that this police department was desperate to put handcuffs on. That individual was identified as Claudio Neves Valente.
As you heard there, the suspect, 48-year-old Claudio Valente. Law enforcement announced they found him dead in a storage unit in New Hampshire with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He was a former Brown student, but 20 plus years ago, a Portuguese national who was granted permanent U.S. residency back in 2017, last address in Miami, Florida. In an affidavit, investigators said a campus custodian and a Reddit post helped narrow the search for the suspect. The gunman, of course, opened fire on Saturday, killing 2 students and wounding 9 others on the Ivy League campus. Valente is also suspected of killing the MIT professor in Brookline, Massachusetts, days later. Officials said it appeared the men attended the same university in Portugal. A sad ending to a horrible story. Let's talk about it. With us, criminal defense attorneys Joe Tamburino and David Bruno, and former FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindeffer. Neves Valentino was also responsible, of course, for killing that professor. The facts are all coming in overnight. I want to go through quickly the timeline here and some of the facts that we know. He was born in Portugal, but a permanent resident. He arrived in the U.S. in 2000 as an F1 student at Brown. He attended school only from the fall of 2000 to the spring of 2001 in the PhD program for physics, went on a leave of absence after spring, and then he withdrew officially in 2003. He's got no criminal record. December 1st, he goes to Boston, rents a Nissan Sentra, drives to Brown, basically that vicinity. Then on the 13th, he opens fire in the physics building at Brown during a study session, killing those 2 students. December 15th is when he is accused of arriving at the MIT physics professor's house outside of Boston, shooting him in Brookline. Then he switches the license plate on that rental car, goes out to this storage facility they had rented in New Hampshire, and that's where his body is found yesterday, bringing this manhunt to an end. Jennifer, wow, what a strange sort of trail this was for investigators. The FBI, they had that video, but it wasn't real clear. Little help from a custodian, a Reddit post, eyewitnesses. Your thoughts on how this investigation and manhunt unfolded?
Well, I will say, once they got video out, that was such a game changer. And when I say video, I mean of the individual who was the former Brown student who was said to be actually homeless in that area, that provided the key information about that car. And then that car, of course, led to the rental agreement and identifying the shooter. So this was great police work starting after they decided to release that video. Prior to that, there were a lot of hiccups, terrible messaging, but at the end of the day, they got him, unfortunately, not before the MIT professor was killed.
Yeah, and that connection, of course, those 2 knew each other back in Portugal. Joe Tamburino, overall thoughts on this? Obviously, this case is closed.
Good morning, Ted. Thanks for having me on. Yes, I think the one thing we should learn about this is let law enforcement do their jobs. I mean, there were so many second guessings at the beginning of this case. Even the president was talking about it, how Brown messed up or FBI messed up, everything like that. The public doesn't have a right to see everything in a criminal investigation. They don't have a right to really see anything in a criminal investigation except for certain facts that come out. But most of the time, that's part of the investigation. I think overall, the law enforcement officials did a good job with this. They worked with the FBI. But I think sometimes we just have to take a breath and let law enforcement officials do their jobs. And I think this was solved pretty quickly.
On that same token, David, the public was involved, and it was a member of the public, especially with that Reddit post, that helped identify this suspect.
Yeah, absolutely. See something, say something. We're in 2025. I mean, it's so critical that, we use our resources everywhere. I just have to, on the Brown University piece, when are we as an institution and as a society going to upgrade all of the surveillance videos? It's 2025. We saw in the Brown University investigation early on that institution really didn't have the tech, and they had some blurry video coming out. Now, the video helped, but with that being said, let's move with the times on universities and institutions and, threat places, because this is a very real threat. This individual had no criminal history. 20 years earlier was at that university. There was no real signs that we know now, and I think that we all have to do better.
Jennifer, to that point, a couple of things. We should clarify this Reddit post. What it was an anonymous post. Someone who had seen the video and was familiar with the area said, you got to check out this vehicle. And described what turned out to be the rental car that the suspect used. That started it. Then a custodian said, oh yeah, I remember that video. I remember the dude with the gate. But as David just pointed out, this guy was there 20 years ago. Talk about a simmering hatred from an FBI perspective, an investigator perspective. Usually it's who was upset last week or who just recently got fired? 20 years, does that surprise you that person was simmering with hate for that long?
Well, what I think the link we're missing here is some proximal event that took place recently that set him off, that made him start that venture. But to your point, he left Miami in about October to come to New England. He rented that facility in November. And so at that point, in that time frame, that appears when this planning first began. So what was the proximal event that happened that ignited him to come and shoot up Brown and take the life of this MIT professor? That's the link we're missing. I think we'll find it out.
And it could have been something from the MIT professor. Maybe he got an award. Maybe you never know, right? And how do you go back? And will there be an investigation, Jennifer? Is this something that, the guy's dead. Does the Bureau care about that?
Yes, there will be an investigation for multiple reasons. They're going to have to tighten up and make sure that nobody else was involved. There's no indication of that, but they need to tighten up that loose end. And secondarily, the behavioral analysis unit in the FBI, this is their bailiwick. They're going to want to get all the information they can regarding him to make a full profile that can be used in their patterning for other killings just like this.
And Joe, this was planned out. To Jennifer's point, he's in the area weeks before this shooting took place. He's already rented a storage shed to take his own life. Overall thoughts?
Well, unfortunately, we see this. You have very deranged people, not legally insane. I'm not saying that at all. It doesn't seem like this guy was. But, just common sense deranged who do these things where they have deep-seated hatred and are basically focused on one person and want to kill them. But I think I agree with Jennifer. They're going to do a full investigation on this. They're going to do profiling. And the other thing they're going to do is making sure that their video camera system at Brown works well, and the cameras are pointed in the right direction. From what I've read, that university has 1,200 cameras. That's a lot of cameras. And I think that's appropriate in today's world. But you got to make sure that they're working properly, they're in the right areas, they're pointing in directions that would be helpful, and they're all stored correctly and are able to be, given to law enforcement basically at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, but David, at some point, you can't protect against everything. If 1,200 cameras, this guy was there for 2 weeks. He obviously was looking, and there is some of that video where he's looking around. He's casing and figuring out his mode of what he's going to do, where and how. And if you've got someone who is not an obvious suspect, who is hell-bent on doing something like this, it's pretty difficult, is it not, to defend?
It is. It is. High population areas like this, foot traffic everywhere, especially the lack of criminal history. This individual had no contact with Brown University for 20 years. Final point from me, hearts go out to the victims and the families, Ted. We're in holiday season here. People are gathering and celebrating while this community is devastated by this. So heart goes out to everyone there.
Absolutely. 3 people will not be with their families this holiday season because of this deranged, as Joe pointed out, individual.